Howdy, beautiful people. Welcome to the channel. We've got, again, Lauren from guidingperceptions.com, and that will be in the description box, but also on the screen eventually. And she is going to channel Erik about a very interesting topic. I almost said difficult, but anyway, it's not difficult. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. What do I know? First of all, hello, Lauren. Hello, Aaron. Love you both and love everybody watching.
Giving you kisses. Hi, Mama.
And for those of you that are like, who is Erik? He is my son who is in the afterlife, and he's got so much to share. So this is from a person that is a dear friend.
Oh, wait. Hold on, Elisa. Erik says, nobody ever introduces my mama.
Oh, Elisa Medhus.
So he's going to give the microphone to me.
Okay.
And he's also showing me one. So I'm going to introduce Elisa Medhus, who is a medical doctor who went all the way into the other side to find her son and make his dreams come true.
Oh, I love you.
I love you, Elisa.
All right. This is from Tanmayo Olsen. She is in Norway. Here it goes. Hi, Elisa. This is her email. Hi, Elisa. Your connections to Norway sparked the idea of contacting you about this topic. You will decide whether this is relevant to ask Erik about. Thank you for the beautiful work the two of you do. Thank you. I mean, you're welcome. So, did the Vikings interact with the Native Americans in the southwest of the USA? There's a stone in Heavener, Oklahoma, with allegedly rune inscriptions. And my husband's name is Rune, which is rune, the secretive Viking language. Different theories about whether it is from the Vikings or not. And some theories speculate that the Vikings sailing in from the North Pacific up to what is now called the California Bay actually met and interacted with the Native Americans in the Southwest area. I attached one link for your information if you find this interesting. There are many more out there. So I'm curious about this for solely private reasons. I know of past lives both that she has with the Native Americans and with the Vikings. Thanks again. Tusen takk, hilsen Tanmayo Olsen. All right.
I just got goosebumps when you said all of that. So
that's
thanks.
Cool.
I don't know what that meant.
All right, so here we go. Here are the questions I asked before. Well, first of all, you can just, before we ask the questions she submitted, go ahead and say what you need to say.
Well, he is kind of jumping right in. So as soon as you started reading what she was writing, he was showing me a piece of rock that had like symbols in it that looks like writing. I can't read it. Yeah. And he then shows me on a map of the Vikings. Yes. Crossing over, coming from the north, but it looks more central. I believe the thing that you were reading, the individual said something about southwestern, but it looks more central from what Erik is showing me. And they absolutely did meet, but it looks like it's more in Canada.
Oh.
Further north. And then essentially, yes. Okay. Yep. Okay.
That's the Heavener Runestone.
Yes. Okay. He's saying that might not be the original stone. It might be a recreation of what actually was there.
Okay.
Okay. So it somehow got recreated or it migrated south so that it ended up in North America. But yes,
in the US, right? So you're saying
and Vikings did meet.
Wait, so you're saying that it was created in Canada, but then migrated to the US, Southwest US?
Yes.
Or was it created elsewhere?
Just as populations expanded and tribes migrated, it migrated with them. And through that migration, because I'm like, okay, so why did it have to be recreated? So he's basically showing me that just time wore it down so it would get recreated to preserve it. So if there was any kind of like carbon dating or anything like that, it's not going to show the right timeline and relativity in time and space for the Vikings and the Native Americans to actually meet at that moment in time, because he says it has been recreated over time. And what we now have uncovered is a recreation from Native Americans, but not in that specific place and time where the research is looking at.
All right. So was this created by Vikings, or was it? Okay. Who recreated it and when? The original one was
Vikings created it when they, right, and meeting the Native Americans. The Native Americans then held on to it. They felt it was purposeful because it's a piece of documentation from their perspective, and it needed to be saved. So as time wore it down, the Native Americans then recreated it 4 different times.
Okay. 4. In the southwest of United States? Is that
he's showing me it happening like as they migrate?
Okay. So maybe starting in Canada or where? Mm-hmm. And then
so the one that they have now is the last recreation. So it would be the final one that was ever done by the Native Americans. And he's transitioning now into talking about Native Americans. And
wait, I'm not finished though with the
okay.
No. So the Vikings created it in Canada or in Norway or whatever, Denmark? Where was it, or where was the original created?
The original was created in central Canada by the Vikings when they met indigenous individuals who then migrated and became native to the Americas. They look Inuit to me.
Okay. So the one that they're looking at now, is that the final one? Is that the one?
The fourth and final recreation.
And that's in Oklahoma, or was there one in California?
Was it like Wisconsin? I don't know. It seems like the
Wisconsin created in Wisconsin and carried to Oklahoma. You tell us, Erik. Or maybe we can get a spokesman for Vikings and a spokesperson for Native Americans to help us with this.
Okay, we're good. I got him here.
Cool.
So I have a very burly man, very Viking, stereotypical looking. He has his helmet on with fur, and he does have the dual horns. He's saying that he's a high-ranking king, essentially, for our translation's sake. He has furs on top, and he's like a leather-wrapped vest as we go down, and then he has leather. It almost looks like a leather kilt in a way, because even how the leather is bound, it's almost like modern day bulletproof stuff. What's it called?
Kevlar.
It's braided like Kevlar. That's why it is the way that it is, and it was so strong. And that does appear to me like a kilt, like 2 pieces. So one piece wraps around, and then you have a flap down the middle. He has linens underneath with leather handmade shoes that go up to his knees, and they're on the inside. There's fur, and then they're like wrapped around with a tie. Okay. And then we have our indigenous representative, because he's not just in the Americas or North America. He's not representing just that, he's saying. He also looks in stereotypical indigenous garb, I guess you could say. He has a mohawk to about here, and then it's full and he has some feathers. He's not wearing a shirt. He's very well kept, ladies. He looks great. And very cut. You're welcome, sir. And he has then tan leather pants with he does have some beading in the middle for like a flap in the front. And he also has leather handmade shoes that are braided up the leg.
Okay.
All right. So what is your question?
So I guess they created the stone, the Mr. Viking man, and Erik, you can help. Did you create this specifically to give as a gift to the indigenous people of the Americas?
So the indigenous individual, can I have a name for you? That's hard to pronounce. Okay, I'm going to call him Ankh.
Okay.
So Ankh is explaining to me that so when people from far away make it to a new land or new people with new ways of doing things, both the chiefs and king found it very monumental and remarkable that humans of different colors, different cultures finally meet. That did not know that they existed.
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps. It was very magical for us because it was like our stories from the sky people coming down.
Yeah.
And teaching us how to protect our land. And we're going to get to protecting our land later, everybody. They also had similar beliefs, or so we tried to communicate or thought, on some level, because language was a huge barrier.
Oh, yeah.
For us. We could not read the stone. We did not know what meaning it gave, but it gave us meaning that we were chosen, most likely from our sky people, to be the ones to protect and document this moment in history where it came together. Since it was so important to us and our culture and how culture changes and what we need to look at for the future, we continue to recreate it for one day they would come back and maybe we could read the stone together. That's very beautiful, guys.
That's beautiful.
And Viking guy is applauding him and says, that was so beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. That was exactly how now he's jumping in a little bit more. That's exactly how, we felt. I am representing a collective, he says. And there's a woman coming in beside him that is for showing that they had a lot of equality when it came to women leaders. So he wanted to make sure that she was representative. What a gentleman.
That is so sweet.
So he jumped into, he said, well, we should make sure that everything is balanced. So he's bringing in a female perspective as well.
All right. Awesome. So did the Inuits give a gift of some sort? Was this considered a gift?
It was really just considered
or just a message.
Okay, so indigenous Ankh is chiming in and he's like, think of it as a photograph. When you get together with your families, you take a picture to mark the occasion, whether that's, I'm seeing Easter, Christmas in my head. You're marking an event. We didn't have cameras. But we had something that they wrote that we didn't understand, that we would never be able to, we could copy it, but we couldn't expound on it.
Well, what did it say?
Read it.
What did it say? What was the message?
I'm asking him, and it kind of feels like, I think there's like a lot of mystery around this. So he's saying it's essentially telling the tale of us coming here and meeting them. And this is proof that we met in a very old language. And I don't think the translations are accurate or even very close. There are names in it. So that part of what could be being translated at this moment in time from the recreation that is also not accurate because they had no idea what they were writing.
Yeah, really.
That's okay, yeah. Right? He's like, so that's 4 times.
It's like playing operator.
Telephone operator. Exactly. Yeah, I was just seeing playing the game telephone in my head. He's like, so it's a translation of an ancient language recreated by somebody who's never written or read the language. But there are like names of people to kind of mark who was there. So that part of the translation might partially be coming through for us right now.
But the original was like a journal entry, like here we are on this day of whatever, on this location, we've met these people who have feathers.
He's like kind of showing me like Plymouth meeting almost, but it really actually was the Vikings.
Wow, that's interesting. So
that's Plymouth Rock, essentially.
Okay. Did the indigenous people give something in kind to the Vikings?
Food, shelter, protection, understanding of the land, which directions to go, how to safely travel. And they provided us resources in equal parts of what we were in need of at that moment in time.
Including?
Some was like gold pieces. Gold in general is just helpful throughout all of time, he says. So there was gold pieces. I'm seeing like grain.
Okay. From the Vikings.
From the Vikings.
Got it.
And furs.
Can you
bow and arrows.
Can you tell us about the initial meeting? I mean, it must have been a shocker from each perspective. And Erik, you can help guide this as well. Okay, so first of all, tell me about the surroundings. I mean, did you come up in a longboat? I mean, or were you already docked somewhere and you came?
So cool. What? So I'm seeing it from a very high perspective from the indigenous individuals, and they are on a very high cliff. It feels very cold to me.
Canada.
And it's a very sharp cliff, but they can hide really well and like see the water, and the cliff goes around. So they're almost like hidden in like a cove, but have like that perfect outstretched vantage point. So like the Vikings wouldn't ever be able to even notice them. And I see how many ships? I see 3 Viking ships in the shape of a V, and it's the long boats with the curls. And I see 1 post in each ship with sails.
Was it on the east coast or west coast? Sorry, east or west coast? I'm assuming east.
They came in from the east down some kind of like smaller waterways to somehow get in the middle, and I'm thinking it's around the Great Lakes.
Okay. So was a cliff on the coast of the Great Lakes?
Or no. Is there like a really big lake in Canada? In central Canada?
What is it? Is the coast, is it the coast of a lake, or is it the coast of, it's like sea? I'll look it up. I'll look up a map.
It's salty, so it must be mixed. Like, the lake must be fed by salt water and fresh water.
Largest lake in Canada.
Yeah, there you go. But they're watching them come in, and the Vikings are telling me it was truly exploratory. They were just, kind of pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries. Let's see what if there are other people out there? What are they like? What are other resources like? So it was truly exploratory, that like mission in a way. And the indigenous individuals were very, like apprehensive. They just kind of like checked them out for a while and watched them set up their camps. And when they all kind of called a tribal meeting and consulted the collective, basically there was like some reconnaissance individuals that were explaining what they saw. And he's explaining to me that they had a process where if the majority was leaning towards one direction, it was the role of an individual to always play like devil's advocate so that all perspectives were welcome and to truly argue that as if they had an army behind them. So it went back to that scenario. The devil's advocate pointed out that they made tents like us. They sought food like us. They are in a faraway land and don't know where they are. Instead of treating them like animals, let's treat them like the sky people treated us when they first met us.
Nice.
And I just got goosebumps. That's like gonna make me cry. So that individual won the hearts of the collective, and they basically greeted them on the shores. It's funny. I see children and women coming with like flowers and like food and like huge baskets
side, right?
On the indigenous side. And they went first towards the women who were cooking on the Viking side, and through children and women, right?
Yeah.
A very non-aggressive, non-threatening, hi, we just are interested in meeting you. Do you eat? Trying to communicate. And then since there was no threat, it all kind of came together. And he said, that's really when people of color and people of the North who don't have much color or paler truly met. And that is really the pilgrimage story that then got passed down and altered into what is now basically the English and the Indians have breaking bread. But it's really the Vikings and the indigenous people of central Canada.
Okay.
That is so cool.
That is really cool. So it was a lake.
Oh, so that rock is like the Rosetta Stone that tells the story of the tale of Plymouth meeting in original sense, which is why there's documented names to mark who was there. So no, it wasn't John Smith.
Okay. That's funny. Okay, a map of Canada. Let me see.
Good job, guys. That was so cool.
No, I don't want to buy it. $985 for a map of Canada. No, I don't think so.
I know, right? You can never blow it up and actually see the.
I know. Okay, wait a minute. There's one. It must be a lake that has access to the ships, right? So Hudson Bay.
So he's saying, remember, this is early on in travel, and the Viking ships, right? They could dock. Now this is so cool.
Okay.
So they had bigger ships that then had like little pods that popped off and too that were like a smaller version of that, so that they could maneuver like canoes down different tributaries and waterways. They look like rivers to me.
Yeah.
And they would feed
the lakes. I got you. Yeah. Whatever.
So no, they didn't take their big, huge Viking ship that got them all the way here, but they have little ones that
the indigenous people saw those lakes off, but
saw the smaller ones coming in.
Okay.
To the bigger body of water from a cliff.
Here are the questions from Tamayo Olson. Are the inscriptions on the Heavener Runestone in Oklahoma done by Vikings? Or that apparently no, it's a recreation, right?
So yeah, so that's like a hard question. The originals written by Vikings. The one that we currently have in our possession was created by indigenous individuals in hopes to recreate the original.
Where is the original, actually?
It's just, it withered away to dust.
Okay, yeah. Did the Vikings go to the southwest of America? And did they meet with the Native Americans there?
So again, he says, remember, we met and they told us where to go. So
yeah,
the indigenous people said, this is a safe route. We know that there's more indigenous on that way, right? So that if they saw that the Vikings carried indigenous goods and baskets, they would greet them with open arms and also reap the benefits of the gold that the Vikings were bringing.
All right. What were their first impressions? I mean, the language barrier was immense, obviously, but what did the Vikings think of the Native Americans, men, women, and children, and also vice versa?
So immediately, I love kids. Kids are so amazing. They teach us so many things about the world. Immediately, I see these like huge Viking, like burly dudes, like you can barely see their eyes, and like the indigenous kids just like having a ball with like their beards and their, because they have so much facial hair compared to everyone. So the hairiness of the lighter skin or the Vikings was like very amusing to the children. And it was kind of like a funny teasing thing that, because he's like showing me his like, you know, rock hard abs and his like hairless chest that like glistens in the sun, you know, and then they're all covered in hair.
All right, so what is it?
That was the first thing.
So they thought that the children were cute and adorable, etc. The Vikings did. What did they do?
Well, everybody did, and it broke the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness. Eric's reminding me of one of the first times a little child of color met me, and I was the first white person they saw, and they were trying to like, I was like, yeah, this doesn't rub off, like it's he's saying, but that wasn't the icebreaker in the room because everyone was feeling that. And I said, yeah, because I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. It doesn't rub off. This is what I look like.
That's funny. So what do the adults think about the adult Vikings think about the adult indigenous folk?
At first he's saying we were just really hoping that they weren't going to attack us because he goes, well, it was not easy getting there. Apparently there were more of the ships that were coming, but they didn't like all make it. They were barely surviving at this point. And they really felt like they just like went too far. And he said, honestly, the indigenous people saved their lives.
Wow.
So he's like, there was no fight in us.
I bet not. So what did the adult indigenous people think about, other than their body hair, think about the Vikings from all
well, and he's saying the reason why the majority of the tribe really felt like we should attack first was because their size.
Yeah, scary.
We felt very small compared to them because they were giants compared to us. I mean, he's like, they're like 6 foot tall. You know, our average height was like 5'5", 5'8".
Yeah.
So he said just the height difference was intimidating. He said the beards were intimidating. We weren't sure what they were exactly.
Yeah.
And like, because they had such metal work, like they were very, they felt very behind the times when they saw them.
Yeah.
That's why they were reminded of the space people, because even though the technologies were different, you know, they still came together peacefully.
Yeah.
Right. So they could tell by like their helmets and their swords that they just had more artillery. Like
So eventually,
so the only way that they would ever be able to take them out is the element of surprise.
Yeah.
is what the indigenous people are saying. That's why we survive for so long, because we are one with the earth. We are one with nature. If you are not, you do not move with nature. We see you.
Yeah. All right. So eventually, when all the initial stuff was, what were the ultimate opinions of one another?
Lovely, happy. We thought it was a good thing, because it was meant to be a good thing, and it should have been a good thing. It just got turned into a very negative thing, he says. And he says that's unfortunate, because we did send them down because we wanted to come together as a whole world. Because think about, he said, any tribe or any group, the more you have, the more you can give, the more you can protect, the more you can do.
Yeah.
This, now the sky people, and the sky is truly the limit, because now we're seeing people that know how to work with metal. Yeah. He said, but they didn't know how to harvest certain crops and work with changing environments like indigenous people do.
Yeah.
So that was helpful for them, because again, they were exploratory to a new world, and they did not know this land or the elements. Yeah. And that's why we helped each other. We as indigenous people needed to learn that there are metal workers out there. There are people with swords out there, and they might not be so nice next time. So we should learn from what is out there. And hopefully, if we can keep this good relationship, they won't ever come with their swords.
So basically, the indigenous taught them how to harvest certain crops, how to survive the different seasons, how to navigate.
Yeah, and how to make baskets with,
right. So
because they had all different like plants and like flora and fauna, right? They have to make baskets out of different materials.
Yeah.
He said the Vikings understood working with leather very well, but if there's no leather, what are you going to use? You still need a basket. Whereas we have been able, the indigenous people of these lands that they came to have all of the knowledge you could have of that land. So it's just keeps them moving on, so that the indigenous people can see that lighter skinned, larger people with metal are coming.
Okay. So what did the Vikings teach the indigenous people anything?
Mm-hmm. They taught them how to wield a sword. They taught them rudimentary blacksmithing, and helping with the bow and arrow, like the actual arrowheads.
Okay.
And he's showing me how they drew more attention to the aerodynamics of the arrowhead. And teaching them how it cuts through like the leather and the meat if it's beveled.
Okay.
So that was really helpful to them. He said, because remember, they worked with leather a lot. That is how we learned the like Kevlar braiding effect. Helps keep certain things. Fringe with water, because remember, they were on the water more than we were. And that's where we learned that fringe flicks water from the Vikings.
That is so interesting. So what time period was this? Is it a triple digit BC or?
I'm asking BC or AD. Yeah. We're going BC. Okay, give me the first number, and then I want the second number with your fingers, please. Okay, so I like validation from all of them. And you know what? I'm going to ask the ladies. 32 BC.
So 30 or 32?
32.
Okay, wow. Long time ago. Okay. Oh, well, actually, never mind. Because 320 would be longer ago. All right. Did the Vikings go to the southwest of America? and meet with the Native Americans there? Well, we know where they originally met mid-Canada, etc. But did they eventually make it to the
So
south?
I asked the Vikings just to like Oregon Trail on a map me real quick. What was your route?
Right.
So he's showing me like coming up through somehow from like the east, making its way to like central, meets the indigenous, working their way down. It looks like they're coming in right on top of like California's right here. They're like one state over, and then they make it to California, kind of follow the coast down, and right before Mexico, they shoot out back into the Pacific Ocean. He's like, it was warmer then, and we weren't used to that. So we had a lot of trouble. We never made it up north. I think they kind of got stuck in the tropics and didn't.
Okay, did they ever get back to their longboats?
Oh, the big ship?
Yeah. No. Okay.
No. So I think that one, did it like go around? Oh no, they rebuilt another ship. Okay. But it looked just like that one. They did just abandon that one essentially.
Okay.
So there's probably an old, huge Viking ship.
I bet there is. So do they ever go back to where they originated from, or do they just hang out and stay with the natives?
They're explorers. They don't stop until they die. That's what they do. So they kept going once they could build another ship, because that's what they do. And they didn't make it. They died in around the equator coming. He said we went too far south off of California.
Yeah.
So
did they capsize, shipwreck, something like that?
They didn't have enough fresh water. They couldn't, basically got out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean going towards the equator, and there's nothing out there, and they didn't have enough stuff.
Oh.
He said the heat, the sun, our skin's so pale. We've never seen. Yeah, they just
they fried. So where is that ship now, and what part of the bottom of the sea?
It looks like it is, in between what would that be? Like the western tip of South America. So if you drew a diagonal line up towards like the equator, I think it's like right on the equator. It's also on a ley line.
Oh.
Or around a ley line intersection. And is there like a line called like something of the tropics? Like
Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn? One of them.
Yeah. He's saying it's the tropical landlines. It's an intersection diagonal off of the western coast of the northern part of South America. So the widest part of South America. And it's like really close to the equator.
Okay. Let me see. Tropic of Cancer is right across Mexico. I don't think that's it. So it's probably the Tropic of Capricorn, which is, that's what you're talking about, probably, right?
Yes. Okay. So if you go diagonal from the Tropic of Capricorn up to the equator, there must be like a ley lines that are intersecting around there. That's where it is.
Wow, cool. So
detailed, guys.
That's awesome. Hey, so did they meet any other tribes other than the original ones? The different tribes. Were any of them hostile toward the Vikings?
Yes.
Okay.
The Vikings were like, but we knew, because the original meeting, we knew that it was going to be an element of surprise. We knew what their weapons were. We knew our leathers were going to protect us to a point.
Yeah.
So we just really skedaddled through those areas.
Skedaddle. How many Vikings in all landed in middle of Canada? Like 50, 20?
No, it looked okay. So I'm asking. Okay, so originally started with, and like on the big boat, there was about 50 of them by the time they got there. There's about 15 to 20 when they met.
Okay.
And then by the time they sank, there was 5 left.
Oh, wow. Man. What happened between did some of them stay in the longboat and only 15 went to meet? Is that what you're saying?
So some stayed in different indigenous tribes. They found love or a collective. Okay. He said, so remember, that takes a long time, right, to get from up there to all the way down there. So you're talking about, children being born and growing up and only knowing, these lands, and the only people they know are us. And the only other ones are the indigenous people. So they weren't really interested in continuing on the journey.
Oh, yeah. Right. That makes sense.
So that was their path. They stayed behind. So, obviously they lost some. Yeah. From that. He said, good job with the Oregon Trail. You have your dysentery, all of the elements, disease.
Did the Vikings bring disease? And vice versa?
Yes, both. So they definitely shared stuff. The Vikings brought a new virus, and the indigenous people, it was more like mites because of their hair.
Oh, yeah.
So that was really tough. And their skin was so much more sensitive.
Yeah.
So that was, I see like more like skin problems, like pustules and boils.
Wow. Was there any like sexually transmitted disease, syphilis or gonorrhea, chlamydia?
That didn't. No.
Okay. What was the original purpose of the Vikings' journey? To
just expedition.
Just explore.
Yeah. Can I keep sailing until I get myself back?
Okay.
Is the world flat?
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did the Vikings ever take the natives as slaves or vice versa? Who's enslaved who and where?
Both. It happened on both sides.
Okay.
So remember, every tribe was different.
Yeah.
The first tribe tried to set the example. So it actually looks like the indigenous enslaved Vikings first, but it was more imprisonment.
Okay.
But the indigenous let them go after they, I guess, served what the collective felt was appropriate.
Okay.
The difference was some of the Vikings kind of, I guess a group of them broke off in kind of like a faction that like wanted to stay. And they then took advantage of some of the indigenous tribes as the other Vikings moved on. So they weren't ever even aware that this had occurred. And they enslaved some of the indigenous people. It was mostly women and children, but they didn't let them go.
Why? What did they need them for? Labor, sex?
All of the stuff that they just didn't want to do. It's really, looks more like, they're cooking for them. They're harvesting crops. They're labor. And nannying their children.
Oh, okay.
And forcing them to teach their children how the indigenous in that land lived, because the Vikings understood the importance of the elements.
Yeah.
So I don't think the indigenous actually taught them
Uh-oh.
life-saving skills. They taught them, rudimentary things.
Right.
But there's a reason why they didn't survive.
Oh, God. Well, hey, no wonder. What else did any kind of influence and exchanging of worldviews? Anything else between the two groups?
They're saying no, that really was the only encounter.
Okay.
Was that group. He said, clearly we had foresight. The pale skins with metal were coming.
Yeah.
And even though, he says, even though there was a huge gap in between the colonization period,
Yeah.
the word spread. And in a sense, the indigenous knew that was kind of like what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So when what we think of as Thanksgiving or like pilgrims coming over, when the next wave came, that's why we came with open arms.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the story of the faction that broke off and enslaved us didn't make it the whole way across the country.
Yeah.
Because again, they only travel so far. And now here we are.
So are there still descendants from the intertwining of Native American, indigenous and the white people?
Yes. So they're saying what the indigenous people did not teach the paler skinned individuals is how to take care of your land, how to take care of the elementals that protect your land and provide what is needed, not what is wanted. That lesson was purposely withheld because the indigenous knew that the land would then turn on them and there would be no land for them to have.
Okay, I'm going to ask specific questions about that, but let me backtrack and ask the descendants of the intertwining of the indigenous and the Vikings. Are they in tribes or are they outside of tribals?
The indigenous, he said they're all pale face.
Oh, okay. If so, are they being native? Was this meeting a spiritual contract? And if so, what's that all about?
Yes, again, it was to get everybody ready because they're coming with metal. They're going to start.
Okay.
So it was really, he's just referring to, anybody will see a pattern in their life, right? Because it's your test run for the big, the doozy.
Wow.
So it was our test run for the doozy.
Oh my God. And what's the impact of that meeting now for us as a collective, if any?
We need to learn that the indigenous are dying and they're not caring for the land because we didn't teach anybody how to care for the land because we had the foresight to protect it enough for ourselves. Now there's too much land that's too sick and too ill for any indigenous tribe. Even if everybody placed their hands down and did a healing, it's not enough. So he's encouraging individuals with any ancestry or any on a spiritual level, if you do have an indigenous guide or a guide who looks like an animal, it could be a very odd looking animal, he says. Maybe like mixed parts, like different heads on different bodies kind of thing. He said, don't be scared, don't fear, for you have some of the lineage, enough of the DNA, and enough past lives to make the soul body connection and heal the land with us we're supposed to be doing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So every time you're in nature, anytime you are taken back by its beauty, please, everyone, just place your hands on the ground and thank the earth.
Yeah. But then wash your hands because you don't want to get you don't want to get pinworms. Wash your hands afterwards.
Right, that's right. He said, thank the earth, and please thank all of the energy that has kept this earth here and all of the indigenous that have protected it before you all got here. Waking up those spirits to help protect us as a collective and not from an adversarial point of view is going to help heal our land and heal our earth, because it's not healing right now. It's very sick, he says.
All right, here's a question. Will the wisdom that the indigenous people keep about how to live in harmony on this earth and with the earth get to have a stronger impact on the collective? With this wisdom from the indigenous on how to live in harmony on earth and with the earth, will it have a stronger
and he says it's never gone anywhere. It's been everywhere. It's not just in the Americas, right? And we're not just talking about North America or Canada, but also South America. There's still indigenous tribes there. There's still indigenous tribes in Australia, Asia, especially Central Asia going into Europe. There's not many, he's saying, so that is definitely a place of concentration, as well as the Americas, specifically North America, really needs some indigenous intention, especially since there is so much indigenous culture. You can literally walk outside in certain areas of the United States or Canada and find arrowheads. So when you pick up an artifact or happen upon one, just thank the indigenous who kept the earth safe and so healthy that we could basically destroy it for centuries, and she's still here.
It's interesting. My little blonde-haired, blue-eyed eldest granddaughter, when she was just little, like 8, we took her on an RV trip all through the reservations in Arizona and New Mexico and all that stuff. And she just had this affinity for the indigenous people. She would get up there while they were dancing and dance with them. So I'm wondering if she's one of the descendants, Viking, Native American.
Yes. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I personally, Lauren does fit into that category. So that's awesome for me. So I can clear Native American lands. He's saying he's explaining how incarnation works and how you progress, right? So there has to be some kind of genetic link in your DNA somewhere that a different species can incarnate.
I'm going to take a picture while you're talking, but I'm listening because I can multitask.
So it kind of works the same with indigenous people because they were the first humanoids really here protecting the land. They have a special connection.
That's her in the middle of.
That's awesome.
Wow.
It's like this bright little
I know, this just looks so weird.
All the lights like reflecting off her head. She looks like a little angel. But no, he's saying essentially we got away from healing the land, paying attention to it there, and the Vikings coming down, creating the essentially hybrids, right? But not from an alien Earth perspective, but indigenous from one area and another, right?
Right.
The land, it doesn't matter where the indigenous person goes, the land still needs to be cared for, but it got lost. So that had to happen, and the DNA had to be intertwined so that when the indigenous tribes died off, that people of the paler lineages could incarnate with the experiences of indigenous individuals.
Interesting. All right. Anything else you guys want to say before we close? This is fascinating.
It is fascinating. And the one topic from before, I always write everything down. They're so good at what they do. They brought us back full circle. And we just talked about it. It was the Native American land, or the native indigenous land clearing.
Oh yeah.
And the Vikings are encouraging everybody as well to, it doesn't matter where you are, especially when you're traveling to new lands, you need to respect the culture and the land that you are arriving on.
Yeah.
We learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
Now we have a sick earth because, and he's taking some responsibility because we were not patient enough or took note enough that maybe we shouldn't leave a faction behind. Maybe we should have said, no, we're not from here. And we take what with us, and not leave things behind. He's like, so that's a lesson for all, right?
Yeah, right.
Now we have a sick earth. Now we know what's going on. He's saying, the collective's mindset is shifting to a more positive, more earth-friendly viewpoint.
Yeah.
So with that collective shift, he's basically encouraging everybody, let's take advantage of it. Learn your lesson from us. Put your hands on the ground and tell the earth how much you love it.
Yeah, do. That sounds awesome. All right. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Information will be down below and on the screen. And thank you, Erik. And thank you, Onk. And thank you, Leif Erikson, the Viking, or whatever your name is. My husband thinks he's a Viking too.
He was.
I'm sure.
Erik goes, you gotta give him some credit. He was. Okay, Mom.
Okay, I'll give him credit. All right. Thank you, everyone. Be sure you subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss something else. All right. Bye.